Okay. I believe we are live with PoliProx interview number 2. Um, we're just getting set up here. Let some people get in. It is 5 o'clock on the money. That being said, let me try to call Nick Roberts here. For him. Scares. Hi, Nick. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. I don't know if my camera is gonna work for Discord because it is being used up by Streamlabs,
Gotcha.
which is
I see.
unfortunate. But if you go to AJK Streams on Twitch, you can see my face. You're not missing much, but if you do want to see me, you can go there. And I'm going to get your face up on the stream. We are live right now, by the way.
I see. Okay, I see it on there. Perfect.
Let's see if I can pop
Perfect.
you
Okay, I
out.
see it.
Excellent. And there's really terrible delay on
You're
stream.
dressed very spiffy on there.
I'm trying something new. Usually I don't go this hard, but I was I was uh I was feeling it today. So let me see
You're
if
spiffier than I am. I'm a little bit underdressed for the occasion, I suppose.
you know your experience and your knowledge makes up for any outfit that I can possibly wear. So
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
excellent. So I just need to grab. Unfortunately, I was running a little close for time here. Grab my interview sheet. That being said, this is a pretty laid back interview style. As I told you via email, I'm not a journalist by any means. Wish I was sometimes. It would probably help out a lot. I'm actually an accountant by nature. That being said, I would love to hear an introduction of you, like your title, your role, education, hobbies, and then just something people should know about you that you would like them to know about you.
Yeah. So first of all, appreciate you having me on. This is actually my first time doing a. I've had Discord on and off over the years, so this is and Twitch. I've not been on in a while. I'll open up with my video game background because because that's I feel like relevant on the Twitch and Discord where we are. Also, I don't know why my camera keeps on failing. I don't know if that's a my issue or what. I don't have an app for Discord. I'm just using the desktop version, but either way. Um, I've not used it ever since I used to be on Discord occasionally because I love Pokemon. That's like the only video game I still play. And there's ROM hacks of Pokemon that are only on Discord, which is a pain. So there's not Discord. I have Discord purely for using these group chats to access these Pokemon ROM hacks. That's the only reason I use it. But Twitch stopped it on a while. Actually, was an OG Twitch believer back in like 2013. Um, and then I just kind of consolidated everything to YouTube because everyone's streaming YouTube more. But either way, I guess the important thing is I'm on the Indianapolis City Council. I'm 24 years old. I have been in office now for about a year and a half now. I'm an elected Democrat, of course. I started running for office when I was 21. A Democrat never won my seat before in the boundary that it currently is. So it was a tough race, won it. And now I'm experiencing local government and really am loving it every single day. It's a lot of fun and a lot of obviously impact, which is what I really value the most out of it. Um, Obviously, it's a difficult time for kind of government entities right now for a lot of reasons, federally, state, locally, etc. But I think it is a really meaningful thing. I mean, I've lived in Indianapolis my entire life, and really getting the chance to work on different issues from, economic development projects, infrastructure, uh, public safety. It's all really important and really just fascinating to me. And yeah, just love it every day. As far as hobbies, you're the first person that kind of asked me that in an interview, which I appreciate. I would say my main interest is anything relating with geography or traveling. I love, um, anything social studies, really, history, geography, traveling, politics, anything that with that kind of lens. I just think is fascinating. Love my dogs too. I have a lot of dogs, um, and spend a lot of time taking care of them, of course. And really, as far as kind of my takeaway, I mean, obviously, local government I think is such an important and overlooked aspect of our society, of course, right? And I think a lot of young people really overlook how important local government is. There's people I know that are so passionate about politics that don't even know anything about local government, which is kind of crazy to me considering how much it affects us and ultimately how much it's overlooked, which is a kind of a blessing and a curse. It allows us to kind of work kind of in the background to be effective, but also I think it's important to have eyes on government, for have people paying attention to see what's going on. So it's a blessing and a curse. But again, been in office now for about a year and a half. Really do love it every day. And yeah, it's been very unique. And obviously, to my age, I'm the youngest person elected of any city of our size or larger. It's
Wow.
been very unique for that reason. And yeah, it's I mean, I am uh, much younger than my average colleague. Um, so it's been a again it's a unique situation kind of for that reason alone. But honestly, it's not really a big difference, and I think it's just a great time. Honestly, running for office, being young, it is a unique opportunity, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the concept of PoliProx is to get young people engaged and kind of get themselves into positions as you have. Uh, Kind of show them exactly what it looks like and how they can do it, which is great. Thank you so much for that introduction. Um, all right. As you can see by the obvious nature of my speaking, this is only the second time we've done this, but thank you so much for being here today. We really do appreciate it. And we will move into the blind questions. So, for full transparency, Nick was not introduced to the following questions just because we wanted to make sure that everything was fair and transparent. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable thing for journalistic integrity. So, that being said, let's jump in. Um, you had already said you were first elected when you started running when you were 21, correct?
Yes.
Do you feel that your age hurt or helped your election chances?
And this is where it is very complex. I think in some ways it was massively beneficial, but in other ways it was a big liability I had to overcome. Which I think most young people could probably tell you that unequivocally. I think for getting being able to raise money on the internet and getting support from Democrats, I think it's very beneficial. There's never been a better time to be young in politics than not, I guess, right now, but like a year ago, because it was the thick of Biden's presidency. It was obviously Trump was queuing up to run again. I heard all the time when I was knocking doors, those sick people were the old people in government. I heard this from people that were older, right? And
Right.
honestly, some of my biggest supporters we're not young people. Like I did not win my election off of just pure turnout from young people. It was really by um, getting older, moderate people to vote for me, right? Which I think surprised a lot of people that were following my race of how well I did in some of the more affluent, more moderate areas. And I did not get crazy turnout like in apartments or places. I don't have a young district. I don't have a college in my district. I don't have any like young areas. So it's all mostly older. Apartments are kind of the youngest place in my area, but even still, it was not anything crazy. But so I got a lot of support from older people. But I do think there was a hesitation, I think justifiably so, right? If I was, just minding my business, some young kid was coming up to knock on my door, and I had no idea who they were, I think I'd have questions, right? And I got that a lot. It also doesn't help that I look younger than I am, which sucks, but it is what it is. Again, it kind of was a blessing and a curse because I looked younger than I am, so it kind of made me more stand out. But also, I think it just made it more of a challenge for me to show that I was a serious candidate. And I think on issues like the big issue we dealt with last campaign was public safety, so crime and everything. I think it was harder to articulate a message being 23 versus if I were a lot older, right? I think I have more credibility to talk about that issue. um, but I do think overall, if I will give one quick answer, I do think overall it was a benefit for my campaign, honestly. Again, I think it helped me be remembered easier. I think people really wanted young candidates in politics. So it's hard to overlook kind of the downsides of it. But overall, I mean, it was very helpful. And I really do recommend any young person, not necessarily to run for office immediately, but to at least think about it, maybe long term, or do it now. I feel like there's a pressing need for it. It's an important time. We got to get everyone off, the bench and get involved. And really, I think running for office, even if you don't win, you know, I was in a really toss-up race, so I didn't know if I was going to win. I felt happy that I ran, whether I won or lost, which I think is important. I've heard that from other young candidates too. They were able to build so much from that running for office. You really learn a lot from it. You meet a lot of people, and it's just very helpful to, I think, for honestly your entire career just by having that experience, which is so unique being a young person running for office.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that answer. And I agree. I don't think we necessarily need everybody that watches this or has any influence at all to go and run for office, but to get involved is a huge first step at
Yes.
some level. All right. What programs have?
Absolutely. And can
Oh,
can I
so
say one thing on that,
yeah,
by the way?
absolutely. Go right ahead.
I didn't really mention this in my kind of my history section, but I have been involved in politics since 2016. I was an intern for the county party in 2017. I was at going to all the protests. I was the vice president of my local Democrats club when I was literally in high school still, right? I volunteered in every campaign. I started working on campaigns, started running campaigns. Like it wasn't like I just decided one day, I have no political involvement, I'm just gonna run for office, right? It was a very natural step up where I was at the point where I got support from mostly every elected official in my area, people that were triple my age, because they knew I was a hard worker. They knew I was, smart. They knew I could do it, right? They knew that I had community relationships. I've been in the area my whole life. And I think that is an important part of it is just the fact that you have to kind of, um, take that approach of taking it slow. Nobody's going to walk into politics and run for U.S. Congress or Senate and win, right? It's a slow, methodical burn unless you're very good. Like AOC is the exception, not the rule on everything, right? Everyone wants to
Yes.
be AOC, but nobody has. Actually, very few people have the raw like political talent, and honestly, partially just luck too. Like AOC ran it a good year for Democrats, where there was a lot of energy in the party that she may not have won if she ran a couple years beforehand, right? So there's always luck, but there's also always timing and there's always giving yourself time to really plan these things out. And I was lucky for that. The fact that I had years and years and years to build up my kind of relationships in the party, and then was ultimately able to run. But I would not have had it if I just jumped in and immediately ran for office. So it took time, which I think is such an important part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a sprint by any means, marathon for sure. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
What programs have been most successful in your area, and could you please give a brief description of what those programs do? I had looked at some on your website and was curious if you had any thoughts on specific ones.
You mean more like obviously on the council? You mean like different
Yes.
like okay, okay. Um, I would say, well, I'll just kind of preface what I'm saying with kind of an important caveat. Um, I'm in a pretty wealthy area of the city, relatively speaking. So, you know, a lot of the social programs that our city offers are not really as much involved in my area as they are other areas of the city. I would say, I mean, really my priorities, and I said it on my website, as you probably know this verbatim at this point. During my campaign, I mean, I was hearing all the time about public safety, obviously. They're post-pandemic, like every city in the country, we experience, kind of a rise in crime, and it's gone down consistently every year, which is great. But staffing all of our public safety agencies is super important. Mental health is another part of that I think is important. That I could kind of combine those two issues. We actually recently just in my council area added in mental health support for our police department. Um, so our police now have standby teams that deal with mental health runs, which I think is great. So the police don't have to deal with that anymore. And then as far as infrastructure is always an issue. Um, Politically, the tough thing is that Indianapolis is strapped for funding by the state. The way the state, which is a Republican state, controls who gets the money, does not help out Indianapolis, which is a blue city. So it's very difficult, and it's all politics, of course. But we are doing our best, and actually, it's on Friday. Probably the worst road in my council district. I just got money to resurface, which is great. We finally have some strip patching plans. It's going to be improved, which is awesome. And those are the small things, right? We had that. We had a press conference yesterday with a park. Um, there's another park in my district that's getting love. We have a trail coming in, which is awesome, an old railroad track. And we recently got money for a bridge over probably the busiest road in my council district. So there are a lot of things like that that are small, right? Um, as far as citywide programs, a lot of them are more probably targeted to other areas of the city. But you know, those infrastructure projects, those park projects, those are things that really matter to people. Living day by day, right? You and I are both probably more political, a lot more political than the average person. They're not following the ins and outs as much. Most people are really not even that partisan, especially on a local election, right? You know, they really don't follow it that closely. But getting those small wins and small victories that people can really resonate with and literally see the results of, I think goes such a long way for everybody's day to day life. So it's been great, honestly. And those political wins are just really exciting to have and be able to, show that we're getting things done.
Yeah, that's great. I what you said at near the tail end there was most people are not really partisan. It reminded me of a discussion I actually had today. Uh, Somebody said to me, how come so many people are conservative? They're becoming more conservative. They're being radicalized. And I told them, I don't even think it's the majority of people that are like conservative or even liberal for that matter. I think the majority of people don't care. It's a matter of getting those people to care about the things that matter and getting them to care in a way that affects people in a positive way instead of stripping things away from people that they need. Um, I don't really have a question there, but it just made me want to bring that up.
Yeah,
And
no, it's a good point, and I really do think that I think most people are could tell you if they lean one way, Democratic or Republican in
right,
general. I think most people also are willing to put candidate over party, right? I'm in a very purple area of the city, so
mm,
I really have to work on that, right? Building relationships with Republicans, which I think has been an eye opener. Like I got started working in politics through Democratic organizing, but really, um, I mean, local government is really not that partisan, thankfully. Most Republicans on we have 19 Democrats, 6 Republicans. Even the 6 Republicans agree with most of the proposals we put out, right? Which I think is good. But I do think it's important from the matter of local government is where you build back political power.
yep,
So even though it is not that partisan, it is important to get good people in there that are, you know, strong candidates and that can do the work and that are effective. Um, because it is where you build back that local political power. But I do think most people, again, are much more willing to vote for a Democrat or Republican, even if that's not their politics on the local level, just because I don't know. I mean, it's just it's all politics is local and local politics. And even though things are more nationalized than ever, I think it is still the last branch of government where you really can see, like we have in rural Indiana, really, really red areas, Democrats that are elected that are still overwhelmingly popular, right? They don't even get opposed and then conversely, there are some blue area of the city that had that have had red mayors very recently. Indianapolis had a Republican mayor until 2015 or 2016, and we were a blue city that entire time. So I do think again, local government is so important for that reason. Um, but I think it is a harder battle to get people to have that same mantra nationally. And obviously, it doesn't help that the Republican Party, in my opinion, is pretty radicalized. And I probably never vote for Republican nationally for a while, so I guess I'm part of the problem. But I do think that it's going to be important to have people kind of be, more. I mean, honestly, paying attention to politics and being closer evaluators of their candidates, which I think primaries are an important part of that too. By people paying attention to their primaries, who's actually running in their areas.
yeah, for sure. And I will say, I think there's a big difference between a Democrat, a registered Democrat, voting for the likes of Mitt Romney versus a
Yeah,
registered Democrat voting for, say, a Donald J. Trump. I think
yeah,
I think it's a completely different party than what it was 15, 16 years ago at this point. So I don't, at this point, I don't think there's any shame in saying, oh, I would never do that. Uh, because of, if you look at it from the perspective of right now, I think people generally do change. So, um, or are, have the capacity to. Not necessarily that they do change,
yeah.
but hopefully down the road we do see a less radicalized right wing that people can feel safe with. Um, is that going to happen within the next 4 years? Probably not, unfortunately. But that being said, uh, that's really not why you're here. I'm just off on my
Yeah,
soapbox.
I agree though. I agree. I mean that's the sad thing is just even the quote unquote moderate Republicans in Congress still are really doing very meaningfully little to push back on anything that's
Right.
going on, in spite of the fact that we're probably heading for a big recession. You know, there was I mean, pardons for people that try to coup the government. I mean, I could go on and on with unqualified people in government. I mean, like
Yes.
the Doge issues, like there's so many things they're not pushing back on at all. So yeah, it's a big issue, but yeah, I digress on that one. I'm probably preaching to the choir on that topic.
Yeah. It's yeah. You absolutely are in my case, but you never know. There might be a viewer out there that's that needs or would like to hear this. Not necessarily needs to, but would
Absolutely,
like to. All right.
absolutely.
You had touched on mental health, working with the police department. I'm curious about what results you've seen from that. Have you seen any statistics regarding maybe less violent police interactions between the police department and the community? Anything like that?
Yeah, so I should caveat what I say on that. That program literally was just put in like 3 months ago.
That's
There's
fair.
basically no data on that yet. Obviously, we all know that it should be able to hypothetically, right? And honestly, the police benefit from it too. Quite frankly, our police in the city, like every city, are so overworked, um, and taking runs off of their load is helpful for them. And also, um, if there's an unpredictable person who is having a mental health crisis, they're not safe in that situation a lot of times, right?
Right.
Nor is probably the person that is suffering from it, right? So having somebody in there that is an expert on how to diffuse that situation is more effective. So I don't have any specific studies, but I've seen them in the past that other cities have implemented. Um, these kind of reforms do have good results from them. But as far as us, we do not have that result yet just because it's a new program. In fact, we only still have about half the city that's having this program. So we're still working on expanding it to the other INP because the way our police department works, there's like 6 districts, and I'm in the North District of the city. So ours just got it recently, and there's two others that have it already. But there's not like any studies or anything about the effectiveness yet. But it is very important. I think that is a just important front for mental health support is by having kind of that police support for that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never actually heard of mental health programs for police. Maybe that's just my ignorance or lack of awareness on that, but I'm excited to look back in a while and see what kind of data that does yield. I don't know if you have heard the statistic, but it's around 10,000 pets that police officers kill every year in the United States,
Hmm.
um, through different interactions. Some I'm sure justified, some I'm sure not. But anything that we can do to give relief to police officers so that they're safer, so that the community is safer, that's fantastic. Like you said, if they're having a mental health crisis, they're getting nothing out of being overworked and getting into sticky situations. I thought I had another point there,
Well,
but I'm
I
not
should
sure.
clarify. With the mental health crisis, I'm more talking about in terms of I'm more talking about in terms of the average. Like if the person that the police officer is responding to is dealing with mental health crisis,
Hmm.
that's more. But I do agree that obviously the police being overworked, dealing with traumatic situations day in day out, does produce mental health strain on the officers themselves too. In fact, we've actually talked about in the last few years opening up a mental health wellness facility for our police department officers, so they have that option. um, because really it is. I mean, it is a traumatic job. But I more so meant a support team. So I should clarify that a support team to go out on runs for IMPD instead of the officers.
Okay.
But there also
Okay.
is a lot more support staff for the actual officers too within the IMPD's internal team because they obviously just need it because it is such a just tough job. Honestly, it is just
Yeah.
a tough job dealing with. I mean, for 8 hour shifts, dealing with constant social issues and problems and people that aren't happy with you. I mean, as much as everybody loves to criticize the police, and I think obviously there are times when it's justified, I don't think anyone want to have the job they have, having to respond to constant hostility and constant people in their worst day, right? And it is a lot to respond with. And um, I think it's important just to have, I think that is a good segue though to thinking that mental health should be supported not just for the officer but also for the people they're responding to. So it's a both sides of the street I think really need that support just with the challenge they deal with every day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, that that being said, as well, I know that there's a lot of reactionary commentary on, you know, my favorite quote is, "Next time you need the police, call a crackhead," or something like that. Or next time you're getting robbed, call a crackhead. That's from a
Right.
Republican
Yeah.
congressman. Um, it's it's not that we want to take all funding away from police. It's that we want more accountability, right? It's we want um, we don't want corruption within the police force, just like how you wouldn't want corruption within your government or within your school board, what have you. So yeah, I think it's really important that we do give them the resources they need to do their jobs properly, and as you said, any relief on them is great. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir to you now. So, uh, you have a pretty dialogic approach, I would say, towards your constituency, to your voter base. What's been your experience with that open line of communication with them? You're like,
Honestly, go ahead.
oh, sorry, no, I was gonna say something, but now I realize that I shouldn't. So please go ahead and respond.
No, sorry, I thought you were completed your thought. But I think it's been very successful. Which I think is again the basis of all of this. Why local government is so important. Because a lot of them don't, a lot of local governments don't. But I put my phone number out everywhere. It's easy to find my phone number, and yes, my actual real number that my family calls me at. I have my email everywhere. I respond to every email, I respond to every phone call, text. I pick up every random phone number that calls me if I know who they are. Like I just think that's our job, quite frankly, being government, right? And if I were in Congress or the Senate or something, I would have a lot harder time doing that. So my policy only applies to local government. It'd be a lot harder if I
Yes.
was at a higher level of office. But that's what people expect out of the local government officials, right? And that's how I think you get trust back in government is by having that open dialogue and talking to people. And really, I think it's a cliche, but in my opinion, it's just as important to talk to people you disagree with as you agree with, right? And also, there are people that, again, like constituents of mine, that I know are huge Trumpers, right? But I get along with them very well, right? Because ultimately, and I hope that they would say this, I'm not just saying it myself, but I am responsive, I do a good job, and that they respect me for that, right? But that would never be the case in the federal government. That dynamic does not really play at all. But locally, I think it is possible. I think the important part for me, in terms of getting crossover votes and getting support, and by broadly competing in purple states and red areas, is um, is really just focusing on that dialogue. And I think it always makes the most difference what's coming from the candidate themselves, right? If I had the staff that we have for the council writing all my tweets and emails, it would not come off as authentic as me doing it, right? People can
Right.
tell when the staff are curating a message for a candidate, right? But I do everything myself, Maybe I shouldn't say this because I should probably have a fall guy in case something happens. Every tweet I write myself, every email I write myself, every Facebook post I write myself, right? But most elected officials don't handle it that way, right? But I think it does show transparency, and that's why people, even that, I would say some ways are more left than me, like AOC, but even right wing too, right? Like even, I mean, like I hate to say, it, like Matt Gates, like 1 million Twitter followers, right? Like he's a big platform on the right. Martin Taylor Green. I think part of their appeal to people is they don't come off like politicians; they come off like real people. And obviously, I disagree with them on everything, but I think having that transparency that people see that you're writing your post and that you have unique beliefs and that you're speaking to them directly goes such a long way versus people feeling like everything that you say is through like an HR vacuum of like your staff like trying to tone down every message you have the most. Like it really is a real problem. And I think in the Democratic Party especially, we censor ourselves so much on different issues, right? And justifiably so in some ways, but we put everything through such like a PR test, and that's just not how um, people want to hear politicians communicate. They want to hear speaking directly, and I try to do that however I can. I do. People tell me I talk like a politician sometimes, but I try to avoid that however I can. But even just um, using my own punctuation marks and having enthusiasm in my messages, right? Like putting funny pictures in there every once in a while. Like that stuff does go a long way compared to just I don't know, just the boring post a lot of politicians make over and over again.
I 100% agree with you. I think the Democrats have sincerely and unequivocally failed on the messaging front towards people. Unfortunately, like you said, you want your politician to be a real person and not just a, a shadow, essentially, of what
Right.
they think themselves should be. I do think there's starting to be a tone shift in the Democratic Party where they're like, we can be a little more fast and loose with our words. We can be a little more real with it. But during the election, this past one, of course, I think a huge issue was that not we, because I'm an independent, but Democrats refused to take risks that were undue risks. The farthest thing that I think that Kamala's campaign did was went on Call Her Daddy, which I think was huge. I think that was a huge step in the right direction. And they were planning on going on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan kind of made it really difficult for them to do that. But otherwise, um, I think Democrats took the zone less than the Republican Party was willing to, because I mean they did a blitzkrieg, right, of everything. Didn't care what they said. I mean, you can find a podcast of J.D. Vance saying anything and everything in every wrong direction, uh,
Right.
but they don't care, and they'll backtrack on everything because as long as they can, lie, spin it, it works. It works to just play fast and loose. I don't think Democrats will ever be willing to go to that level, and they probably shouldn't with some of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think being real with people, being genuine with people, comes across a lot better. It's probably how you got elected, to be honest with you. Just being that
Yeah.
genuine person.
And and I think in some ways it's not even ideological. Like it's just kind of vibe sometimes.
Yes.
And like even in the last week, I mean, I there was a noticeable shift. There was a big controversy with our Indiana Secretary of State bought this luxury vehicle for his office, like all this nonsense. And one of my favorite state representatives said, "This is bullshit." Like that's what he said, and the paper quoted that and everything. And I love it honestly. Like I think people like that just directness sometimes. I'm not even a big. I don't even curse a ton, but I think when people feel angry, they deserve to have a government that understands their anger. And there's situations where we're seeing right now in the federal government, which is all the controversies. Like it is bullshit a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about the election, I totally agree. I obviously supported Kamala and Tim Walz completely.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteered for them. I met them both, but they're great people.
Oh wow.
But oh yeah, I have a lot of respect for them, but I do think the campaign would have benefited from being more aggressive and earlier on too. Um, one of the memories I have politically, I don't know how well you remember this. It was in the 2020 Democratic primary when Bernie Sanders was endorsed by Joe Rogan, and Bernie publicized that endorsement. Do you remember that?
I don't because I wasn't as into politics back then, but I do know that it
Uh,
happened. Yeah.
yes, and it was so controversial. All of the Elizabeth Warren supporters, especially, were like, "Oh my God, Joe Rogan is a transphobe. Joe Rogan's a racist. How could you ever accept his endorsement?" Right? They're mad at him for going on the podcast, right? But I think the reality is, no matter what your thoughts are on Joe Rogan, who I'm not particularly fond of, we should not be if we have people that are willing to endorse good candidates, we should not be excluding them from supporting us, right? Like even the Liz Cheney thing, this might be a controversial opinion with some people, including yourself. I don't know, but I think we should be expanding the tent immediately, right? We are in a threat to our country right now, and the more people we can get on board that oppose the message, right? I think it's important. Like even this last week, like Dave Portnoy at Barstool Sports had like a video opposing Trump, and I saw some Democratic pages sharing that. So be like, no, why would you ever share Dave Portnoy? He's horrible. It's like, well, the reality is, we should be embracing people like him not supporting Trump anymore, period, right? Like we need to bring everybody on board who we can. And it's not like Dave Portnoy or Joe Rogan are running for office, right? Like I wouldn't support them for president, right? But as far as them supporting democratic ideas or campaigns, we should be embracing that every day. They both have huge audiences and they're respected for not being Democrats, but just, independent thinkers, quote unquote. I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but
Yes.
we should be embracing anybody that wants to endorse Democrats, period, right? And or just common sense candidates, clearly, right? And right now, I think Democrats have a problem of we scold people for not being pure, even if they're supporting us, which is a problem. So I just have an issue with that, and it I think it is changing. People are waking up to it. Like the Democrats have gotten a little bit preachy for a while and exclusionary of our own big tent. Sometimes we have to, I don't know, we have to just work on that honestly over the next few years.
Yeah, everything right now is just a purity test, which is really putting a strain because there's what was the quote? It was like anyone to the right of Trump is an ally, anyone to the left of Schumer is an enemy. Um, I think that, uh oh, I don't know if I lost you. I might have you frozen here. Nick, can you hear me? Oh, do we have you back?
Hear me?
Now I can.
Can you hear me? Okay, I don't know why. For some reason, my video keeps on breaking up. I don't know why, but I can always hear you the whole time. I could hear you the whole time, so I don't know
Oh,
why.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, you just froze for a second for us, so I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. Um, but yeah, essentially, not to go into Trumpian rhetoric here, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So anytime you can use
Yep.
that as a leverage point, you should, for lack of a better word, exploit that leverage and use it in order to gain political capital instead of expending it to repel those people. Now, that being said, I think you can post the video of Ben Shapiro saying, "Oh, Trump is doing bad things," as a talking point of, "Hey, even this like far right wing guy who race baits is going against Trump right now." That being said, I don't think you say, "Let's adopt Ben Shapiro into the Democrat Party. He's one of us now. He's good now," just because he's opposing Trump. There is that separation, but I do think you can amplify that as a way to say, "Hey, your tent is falling apart over there, Trump and
Right.
Republicans." Um, but yeah, as far as Joe Rogan, as far as Portnoy, they're extremely influential figures, and having them lean towards your side is definitely beneficial for gaining voter base. Instead of saying we're actually too good for you, and
Yep.
anyone that's in your fan base, yuck, ick, right? Like that
Yep.
doesn't help.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, a hundred
And I think
percent
we have an
agree.
impulse to do that of criticizing again people's faults when the reality is, if any human on earth had a podcast for, and I'm not saying this to defend Joe Rogan even necessarily, but if any human had a podcast for whatever 5,000 episodes he has hypothetically,
Mhm.
everyone would have something that we could be canceled for. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Right over time,
Don't
I
look
think this is
back
what
at
we
my
love.
vods.
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, like it's honestly a miracle that I would say careful, but like on Twitter, like I never said anything bad, even when I was like a kid, right? But most people have something that is probably not a great take at one
Yeah.
point or another. And I think as Democrats, we often look for that thing to go after them, right? When again, I'm not saying these people even should be supported or perfect, or even again, this applies to Joe Rogan necessarily, because I think he's beyond that and he has a lot of issues. But again, I think we should be looking for allies and not tearing down our own allies.
Yeah.
And we should be really careful about that because there will be Republicans that jump off the Trump ship over the next however many weeks and months and years. And we need to be looking at how to strategically align with them so that way we can build political power again. And they don't necessarily be our presidential candidate in a few years, but we should be looking at finding ways to get allies. That's politics in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Um, completely gonna shift gears here. Do you think high-speed rail would benefit Indiana residents?
Absolutely. Indiana had high speed. We had more high speed rail than any state in the country until like the 1930s, until we idiotically tore it down to for no reason.
I did not know
Um,
that, and I was born in
yeah,
Ohio.
really. Yeah, no. I mean, Ohio actually was probably very close to Indiana, if not like tied with us. Um, but no, I mean, the Midwest was the heartland of America. I mean, think of how many factories were around here. That was how we got all of our goods across the country, right?
Right.
With all the manufacturing, not just the country, the world. I mean, America was truly revolutionary in that. And now we tore everything down. Indiana now has, an Amtrak line and a Cardinal line going through us a couple times a week, and Ohio is probably not too far off from that. I mean, it's truly sad just that effect, right? And obviously, I mean, I consider myself, you know, an urbanist in many ways. I'm not anti-car necessarily, but obviously, we massively overcorrected in that era of American history and tore out what was the basis of all America.
Right.
And if the state of Indiana is never going to put back high-speed rail, and one thing I don't know if this is a surprise to you. Did you know this? There's only one city in the country that has explicitly banned having light speed rail. Do you know which city it is?
I have no idea. Is it Indianapolis? No.
Indianapolis. Yeah, it is
Why?
explicitly banned by the Republicans in the state house for having light rail because they hate it. I mean, ultimately, it's about politics. It's about punishing us. It's about car dependency. It's about the lobbyists who control a lot of these things, right? I mean, it's an issue. So the state's never going to do it. The city isn't even allowed to, but the federal government can save us. The federal government has a lot of issues right now, but if they can work on high-speed rail, I'm 100% in support.
We just have to
Obviously,
call it
it's
the
been delayed
Trump
for a while,
train.
but
That's it.
exactly, yeah. Hey, name it whatever you want. The Trump chain, the JD Vance, rail line, like whatever it is. I don't care. Make high-speed rail happen, but it's gonna take a while. Unfortunately, I think that'd be
Yes.
great.
I had no idea that Indiana used to have the most high-speed rail in the country. Someday, Indiana's greatness will shine again. I'm sure with the most.
Hopefully,
Um, wow, that's incredible. But yeah, I agree completely. I think it could really bring more residents, more commerce to a lot of the heartland states by connecting them via high-speed rail. Because most people can't afford plane tickets all the time. They just can't. It's too expensive, and nobody wants to drive across the country. It's too big. So if you allow people to hop on a train and in one day be able to get back and forth, I don't know. I think it's really expansive. But yeah, we're definitely a little too far on the car dependency, especially when burning fossil fuels is getting us to where we are at. So, that being
yes.
said, another gear shift for you. What is the highest office you ever expect to seek out?
I get asked this question every single day.
Do you really?
Honestly, yes, it is, and I think, well, obviously being young in politics, people always assume I want to like rise with the ranks. My genuine answer, this is not coming at any like I'm not even answering this in a political way. I really don't know, quite frankly. Um, First of all, I am only 24, so I have a long life ahead of me. Um, but I think it's so hard to predict politics. Like I said before, it's all about timing. Like, you know, I from my spot on the city council, I mean, the most natural step up would be the state legislature, but there's always, dynamics there at play that make it tough or I don't necessarily want to, but also I really just love, honestly, the city council. I love kind of working at urban planning and issues like that. So I think it's just very impactful in the interest that I have. Um, so I'm very happy where I am for now. But also, there's a chance, like within a few years, I don't like politics anymore. Like I don't think that will happen because I've been involved now for long enough, despite all the fucking chaos we've been through. But there's a real chance I could have a kid or family, and I decide I don't want to be an elected official anymore. So honestly, it's just hard. I mean, of course, I would never say never to anything. It'd be very impactful being Congress. I would love being mayor, but ultimately, there's so much luck involved to get to that point, and you really have to be very, very dedicated to make those things work. So I'm very happy where I am. Um, it's hard to say, but um, again, never say never to running for higher office. But I'm very happy where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Great answer. Uh, this is another. I'm kind of just hitting you with every combo that I can with the gear shifts here,
Please
but
feel free.
do you see the quote male loneliness epidemic as a threat to progressive values?
I I, I do. Um, I'm trying to.
Avoid using certain
I,
words
I
for.
well, it's not that. It's not that. I'm trying to. I think it is a societal issue, even just as much as a progressive values issue, quite frankly, because I think there is the politics of it. And there is like because it's I think it's a huge issue. I'm trying to figure out how to best define it because I think it is again partially a political issue, a societal issue, a um, a health of the species issue. I mean, there's so many issues to delve into it, but I've seen it so much, honestly, from friends that I have and just other people I know that have become very radicalized politically by it. And I think it's producing dating issues. Like a lot of women don't see a lot of men that they can bond with because they are so far out politically or so radicalized
Yeah.
by a lot of these online movements. Um, it is just a destabilizing force I think I've seen coming from earlier because no matter what YouTube community I scroll down, whether it was when I was getting into fitness, whether I, watch a video game content, whether I'll watch videos about whatever it is, like I swear to God, half the channel these days that target young men, you'll watch the videos in like 5 minutes and they'll talk about some like red pill nonsense. Like, and
Yep.
it's such an easy segue. And thankfully, I have a bedrock of political ideology. That's not impossible to change, but it's pretty hard to convince me that like, oh, abortion should be overturned and all these different crazy ideas people have. Or like, oh, we should get rid of no fault divorces. Like that's I've seen
Yeah,
people genuinely argue for that online,
I've
right?
seen that. I've
So
seen
it's
retraction of the 19th Amendment. I've seen,
yep,
no more credit card for women. I've seen all of it, all of the
yep.
anti-women stuff. So it is incredible what's happening right now.
And I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon, quite frankly. I think as these men evolve, like because I think a lot of the people are just being edgy kind of young boys,
Right.
and I think there is always kind of a tendency to be edgy and just do kind of things that are contrarian.
Hmm.
But I think for some people it delves into reality, and I think when you are lonely and you are isolated from society, um, people have a natural impulse to want to blame somebody else for it, and justifiably so. Like they're in a tough situation, but obviously, I don't think women are the fault of it, or people of color, or whatever it is, right? That's I think so much of the attack on DEI right now and women in politics is just the idea that there are all these people of color and women that are taking all these opportunities from white men. I mean, I don't think every DEI policy has been a success, certainly. I think there are definitely times overstepped and it's been a fault. But I think overall, you know, um, those two things go hand in hand because people have to frame it as merit versus like DEI. But in the reality, DEI in theory should be able to support people to getting that merit because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to really succeed. And getting people to step in, I think, is important.
Right.
But either way, I mean, it's just, it, I think people love to have an enemy. They love to have a person they can blame. I think a lot of young white men, but also men of different spades, want to have a villain they can blame everything on. And I think it is widespread. But also, quite frankly, I do think, there are serious things that the Democratic Party and progressives need to address, right? Um, you know, Male suicide rates, male education issues, right? Violent crime rates for men. Like there are a lot of things that do disproportionately affect men, and there are again like even court issues with like paternity issues. Like there are things that are legitimate issues for men in society that are worth having conversations about. Well, I do think some of it is still that natural human element of um, wanting to blame others. So it is just a complex issue that I am very, very concerned about for political reasons and societal issues. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know when the end is in sight for that. I don't know if it'll get better or worse. I wish I could say it will, but maybe maybe this is my optimistic take. I hate to say it this way, but maybe if the economy tanks, some people might realize that Trump's not really looking out for them, or the Republicans aren't really looking out for them, and that they're just incompetent. Um, but who knows? It's easy to pass the baton to somebody else, even still.
Yeah. I think some might. I think some might defect from the beliefs that they currently hold, but I do think others will ride it till the bitter end. Like in Berlin. But unfortunately, that's just where we're at. I don't know
Yeah,
what the solution is either. Um, to be quite frank, but I do know that I've never seen more in my lifetime more disrespect towards women coming from men who feel entitled to their bodies, a relationship with them, what have you. Um, and I think I agree with you. I think it's cultural and political. Um, but it's also the culture of the politicians that are at the top and how they treat women. I mean, we know how Trump treats women. We know how JD
yeah.
Vance sees women as vessels to have more babies. So does Elon.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, especially him. Especially him.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Elon Musk makes Donald Trump look like he's like a saint or like a very respectful guy a little bit. Actually, I don't know. I don't know
It
who's
goes
worse
back and
looking,
forth.
Elon or Trump. Yeah, I think day by day they each make a different comment. That's just like disgusting. I just think that's like
Yeah.
beyond the pale. But the reality is like those are the people messaging to young men right now. Elon controls the biggest social media platform. Actually, I don't know the biggest for young men, but it's probably up there. But even like Zuckerberg and like Zuckerberg has been talking about how like, oh, they're trying to take the masculinity out of like our
And
society, and
since
it's
when
just
has he been masculine? You know? Since when is Trump masculine? The most masculine thing he does is just lie all the time. But
Yeah.
whatever. But that's the other part of it too. Why do we put somebody like Tim Walz? Why do we give him a muzzle when he goes and speaks on issues? Because he's, in my opinion, a pretty masculine guy. He hunts, he fishes, he grills, he can yell. Those are all male qualities that we perceive as a society. So why don't we, at least during the political campaign, allow him to kind of speak on those things?
Yeah, and I do think hmm, I I've heard that discourse a lot. Honestly, I am still not really sure how true it was, honestly. Thinking right, like another hot take on it. Um, I I do think like there was some level of um pushback, but success from the whole "they're weird" thing, which I think is kind of like the defining early message for Walls. But I think we need to evolve beyond that. Um, but I also think I don't know, and this is maybe a problem, but voters in general expect Democrats to take the high road all the freaking time.
Right. The
And
adults
I
in the
think our
room.
own voters do even too. Yeah. And the media portrays it that way. Like if Democrats do something out of line, they act like we are such betraying the norms. Republicans do it all the time, right? Which I think
Constantly.
is a problem that we don't tolerate our politicians enough to be tough and to, say the truth about people, right? Um, and I do wonder how it would have turned out if Tim Walz were more direct about kind of that issue. Um, because I think he tried to be in some ways. Like we saw it in the debate. I mean, the debate was not very good for
No.
Tim Walz,
No, it wasn't.
um,
It was bad.
and I don't think it was just because he was being muzzled. I do think some of it is he is very good kind of at sound bites, but I do think he kind of struggles sometimes in that debate kind of style. So I don't know if
Hmm.
he was more confrontational, how that would have gone, quite frankly. I do think there was an issue in the debate, and not to relitigate everything of 2024, but he was agreeing with JD, like, oh, JD made a good point. Like, Kevin saying that over and over again. Like, he was very amicable with JD
Yeah,
Vance, which I think is an issue.
I agree.
And I don't know if that was even the campaign telling you that, or if that was kind of his personality. Like when you're from the Midwest, I do think there is a general kindness from the Midwest that is not the case in other places in the country. Like it's not a very cutthroat place in the country,
No.
genuinely. I think people's default is to always be kind of trying to build a bridge and be respectful. It's not seen very positively to be out the gates like guns blazing. I don't know if it is a Midwestern thing. Like that's kind of how I've always associated it. And like in Indiana politics, that's very much kind of the expectation. But either way, I don't know. I mean, I do think he should be utilized more in that way. Um, but I'm not sure if that was the end all be all for the campaign because at the end of the day, I'm not really even sure how people vote on the vice president himself. I think most people make up their mind, of course, on the president on the ticket.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go through some less serious questions if you're all right with that.
Let's do it.
These
Let's
are
do
just
it.
kind of for fun. And if anybody is out there in the audience currently, more people might watch this after it's put out on YouTube. But if anybody's out there, go ahead and put your audience questions in the chat, and I will vet those and get those to Nick in just a second. So, who is the best superhero in your opinion?
Okay, don't hear my really hot take. My favorite
Yes,
superhero will
would
come to
love it.
it. I loved Nightcrawler from the X-Men. I thought he was so cool. Teleporting, he's blue. Like he's something very cool about him. I don't know what it is. Um, all the mainstream superheroes, like I guess Spider-Man was kind of my favorite of them when I was a kid. But like I don't know, too much of the Avengers stuff I think has gotten too mainstream. I like the obscure superheroes.
I like that answer. Nightcrawler, that's
What about
cool.
you? What'd you say?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even tell you.
And if it's something that's obscure, don't feel bad. I would
Probably
joke that you said
Homelander.
Spider-Man or something.
No,
Really?
no, no. I'm a big Batman guy. I love
Okay.
the recent one. I love the Christian Bale one. Um, I think I like him just because he's a regular guy who is like a
Mhm,
psychopath but loves to fight
mhm.
crime. I'm like anyone can
Right.
be this psychotic and be successful. I love it. I just need $1 billion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. You could become another Elon Musk if you wanted to.
I'm okay, actually, on second thought. Um, what's your preferred sauce for chicken nuggets?
Oh my gosh. I would say honey mustard if I were to have some nuggets. Honey mustard's good. Honey mustard.
Do you like
Actually,
hot mustard?
ranch might be ranch. No, no, no. I'm too white. I don't do spicy food. I just do the sweet stuff. I would say ranch and honey mustard. Actually, those would be my two favorites.
That's great. That's a good answer. My fiance loves hot mustard. I can't stand it. Get it away from me. And I like spicy, but
Yeah,
what the hell is hot mustard? I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I don't get it at all.
Which Star Wars character best represents you?
That's a great question. I see. I get asked about Star Wars every once in a while because two funny stories. I don't know if you know this, but Mark Hamill is one of my Twitter mutuals, and he responds like half my tweets. Or he's not on
What?
Twitter anymore. But he respond like all my tweets. Yeah, love Mark Hamill. Um, and then my dog's name after Star Wars characters too. So I get people asking about Star Wars a lot, but never what character represents me best. Um, I don't know. Is it basic to say Luke Skywalker? Is that
No.
basic?
No, you're literally
I kind of
mutuals with him on
Skywalker a little
Twitter.
bit. Yeah. He also compared me when he DM'd with me. He says you remind me of me at a young age, so I'll take that.
Wow.
If he, I'll wear that as a badge of pride.
I
If
can kind of see it,
we match. So
actually.
yeah, I'll say Luke Skywalker. Yeah, yeah. See, I'm too much. I need to be more evil. Like I'm too much of a protagonist. I feel like in life, like I don't go. Like I'm too much of a Democrat. I always take the high road. I feel like Luke Skywalker kind of embodies that. You know, I'm not wise enough to be like Obi-Wan. I'm not mischievous or quick-witted enough to be like Han Solo, and I don't even want to think about the new era characters. So yeah, I'll say Luke Skywalker.
Excellent. Excellent. Do you believe in ghosts?
I do not. I do
Oh.
not.
Alright, I'll
I
take a
wish I
note
did. That
here.
would make my life more fun if I believed in ghosts, but I do not believe in ghosts, unfortunately. Do you?
Um, I'm obligated to say yes because one haunts my room. So, um,
Really?
yeah, it's actually been quiet lately, but now that I've mentioned it, they'll probably visit.
I'm back tonight. Yeah.
Don't say that. I get so upset. Sometimes my chatters will come and say it's behind you, and I just freak out.
Yeah.
But they're lying. It never comes in during stream. It's shy, I
Yes.
think.
I think so too. You're probably right about that.
What shows have you been watching, or musical artists have you been listening to?
Yeah. Um, well, my two favorite shows of all time are political shows, kind of. Survivor and Big Brother are always my two favorite shows. I watch a lot of strategy shows. So I don't know if you know The Traders too. I watched that recently. I watched Deal or No Deal Island, which is kind of a goofy show, but it's still another strategy show. I don't really watch much like I guess fiction TV. I watch more, I don't know, again, social strategy stuff, which I enjoy, and I learn a lot of politics from those shows. Um, as far as artists, I'm trying to think of a new artist I've listened to recently. Hmm. I don't know if there's really any new artists or anything. But yeah, as far as shows, I don't watch TV very much, but I do again watch a lot of strategy shows, which are my favorite. I watch Jeopardy every once in a while too.
Oh, I love
Obviously,
Jeopardy.
I watch sports all the time, which isn't like a show, I guess, but that's like
It
I guess the main
counts.
thing I watch on TV. So those are my main things.
Any musical artists lately? Like good ones?
Yeah, I mean, there's always. I mean, I'm trying to think of like new artists I've been listening to. Um, who did I listen to last year a lot? Oh, I listened to a lot of Noah Khan last year, I guess, which is
No
kind of a new
way.
artist. I've been. Oh yeah, why? Well, he's like a New England guy too, so you
Yeah,
can
he
probably
is.
relate to him.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
starting
like Noah
to.
Khan a lot.
I only moved about
Yeah.
a year ago, so um,
Oh really?
yeah, now I'm LARPing as a Massachusetts
Yeah,
Massachusetts
he's a
resident.
Vermont guy, but close enough. Close enough. He loves his references in his songs. So
Yeah, he
I like
does.
him a lot. What's funny is I thought he was super overrated for like the first year that I listened to him, but now I really like him.
Yeah,
I don't know what changed my heart for. I actually think I didn't like some of his hits, but I think a lot of his like kind of deeper cuts are really good songs. So
I had
I'm
the
definitely
exact
a deeper
same.
cut. It's like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead. I was saying anything important.
No, I was just saying I had the exact same experience where I was like, "What's all this hype about?" I would get ads for him during COVID. And then
Yep.
I was like, oh, I do like him.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I remember very vividly. I'd only really heard like '60s and like Dial Drunk. I don't really heard like either of those songs. Um, and then like there was Spotify Wrapped like in 2023, and everybody know it kind of their top five. I'm like, who is this? Like, why this guy's terrible? Why do people like him so much? And then I started listening to more of his songs from that. Then I caught the bug, and the next year he like number one on my Spotify Wrapped. So like you just never know. Sometimes it just happens like that. And also as an FYI, one funny thing that's kind of a full circle moment of this conversation that I'll just say that's kind of off topic is I love questions like this because I try to be as authentic as possible when I answer. Um, but there was like Pod Save America episode about this, how politicians love to go for like the most perfect answer, like try to find the right answer for every question. When like honestly, just give your actual answer, you
Yeah.
know. And one of my favorite examples is like I remember during Obama's election, I don't actually remember this, but I've heard the story. People asked Obama what his favorite TV show was to watch. And he said The Wire, which is a show about like gang violence in Baltimore and how people like gangs operate. And I remember everyone was like, "What the fuck? Why would you say that?" No, it's real. Like that's his favorite show. Just fucking say it. Who cares? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I appreciate you asking that because I do think it kind of I don't know. I think it's important to have that like relatability with politicians, and I think people love to act like we're not real people when they
Yeah.
have real life like everybody, you know?
Yeah, we need to humanize politicians because at the end of the day, they're not kings, they're not gods, they're just people. We're all fallible, and
Yeah,
we all need to go into every discussion understanding that and not just believe,
absolutely.
no, this guy's actually massive brain and these tariffs are good
Right.
for us.
Right.
Oh, to any degree, I digress. That is kind of a good bow on it. The last question I really have for you is there another political figure you would like to see come on to PoliProx?
Oh, good question. Definitely I'm sure it's super easy. Get Joe Biden or Barack Obama to come on. I'm sure that would be a really good
They're
podcast
next
guest. Definitely
week,
do that.
so
Next week. I knew they'd be coming up soon. Need to be coming up soon. Get AOC on the week after that. You have a whole setup. So I
I
love it. I love it.
I told my fiance, I said my goal is to have Bernie Sanders on before he passes away. I will do everything I can to do that, but that is a lofty goal. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, well, I appreciate having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, just I encourage people to get involved in local government, follow local government, get involved in the political process. Don't necessarily run for office, be engaged in it. Consider again volunteering, and going to protests, doing all that work because that's really how we start changing back our government is by doing that work day by day. So I appreciate having me on and keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Nick. I appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. AJ, have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye. All right. That was Nick Roberts of Indianapolis City Council. City Council. Can't thank him enough for coming onto the show. I honestly had a really good time with that interview. I did with the last one as well, but that was a lot of fun. It felt like just kind of having a regular discussion. So, that being said, we're going to take a very quick break, but we will be back live in 5 minutes, and I hope to see you all there. All right. Remember, the world needs you. Take care.